Hello and welcome. General Conference weekend is always such a special time for reflection and renewal, isn't it? And this past one was a really powerful reminder of that. So let's jump in and explore the key messages and the very unique spirit of this October 2025 conference.
This conference was held in a very unique context. There was this deep feeling of reverence after the recent passing of President Russell M. Nelson. So it was really a time to both honor a prophet we all loved and also receive that clear, steadying guidance for the path ahead.
Right from the start, the sessions began with this really heartfelt tribute to the life and legacy of President Nelson. President Dallin H. Oaks, acting as the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, opened the conference, and he shared his own personal love and admiration for the late prophet.
Now, even as the conference was a time of tender remembrance, the speakers also acknowledged the very real challenges and sorrows that so many are facing in the world today. For instance, Elder Gary E. Stevenson specifically addressed the recent tragedy at a meeting house in Michigan, and he offered so much comfort to those with burdened hearts. And it was right there, in that atmosphere of both remembrance and realism, that this powerful theme just started to emerge. How do we find and hold on to the evidence of God's hand in our lives, especially during the hard times? And that became the focus of an incredible sermon from Elder Jeffrey R. Holland.
Elder Holland's message was this powerful invitation for all of us to actively look for and really cherish the evidence of God's works, the proof that's all around us, especially when we might feel spiritually blind or, lost in those mists of darkness. And he outlined several really profound ways we can do this.
Okay, so this is such a crucial point he made. Ordinances are not just rituals. They're meant to be personal encounters with the divine. Elder Holland explained that things like baptism, partaking of the sacrament, and our temple worship are all designed to bring us closer to the Savior, making His power really evident in our lives.
And building on that idea of personal encounters, Elder Holland then pointed to another powerful piece of evidence, the Book of Mormon. He described it as this tangible guide, something we can hold, and a source of real light in our lives.
And this all leads so perfectly into his final point. Elder Holland shared his powerful personal testimony that the restoration of the gospel is, for him, the ultimate evidence of God's work in our day. It's undeniable.
And this focus on actively seeking spiritual evidence wasn't just in Elder Holland's talk. It really felt like a thread that was woven through the counsel of other leaders who shared timely advice for navigating our modern challenges with faith.
So let's look at a few highlights from some other speakers. Their counsel really gives us a practical framework for how we can apply these principles and find that evidence in our own daily lives.
You can see a clear pattern in these messages, right? Elder Uchtdorf reminded us that faith isn't passive. It's a daily, conscious commitment. It's an action that produces evidence. Then Elder Stevenson taught that being a peacemaker is an act of courage and a core Christ-like attribute that brings the Spirit into our lives. And Sister Browning so beautifully illustrated how something as simple as sacred music can build a child's testimony. When you put them all together, these messages create this powerful spiritual toolkit for navigating our day-to-day.
The conference also gave us a really important opportunity to understand the administrative transition in church leadership. I'm sure many of us have wondered how the church is guided after the passing of a prophet, and the answer is in a divinely established and really well-ordered process.
Elder Henry B. Irene explained this whole process so clearly. He reassured all of us that with the dissolution of the First Presidency, the senior apostles resume their places in the Quorum of the 12, which then collectively directs the church. So there's never a vacancy in leadership. The Lord's work just continues, uninterrupted.
And looking at this timeline is so important because it just demonstrates the stability and the continuity of the Lord's church. This isn't some unforeseen circumstance. It's a pattern that has been in place since the early days of the Restoration, and it ensures the work always moves forward under apostolic keys.
So, when you try to synthesize the overall spirit of the conference, what do you get? For me, it was one of deep reassurance, tender remembrance, and a really clear call to action. It was a message of moving forward with unwavering hope and a renewed sense of purpose.
This idea, which was so powerfully taught by Elder Dieter F. Uchtdorf, really connects all these messages. He reminded us that faith is a gift, but it's a gift we have to choose to receive and actively nurture. That active choice, that conscious commitment he talked about, that is exactly how we begin to see the evidence that Elder Holland invited us all to find.
And that brings us to the final thought, a question for all of us to consider. The messages of this conference invite us to do more than just listen. They invite us to see, to look for God's hand in our lives, to cherish the evidence we find, and to actively build our faith every single day. Thanks so much for joining me for this summary. May we all go forward with renewed purpose and hope.